All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Angry Asian Uncle podcast. My name is Reynold. I am your host, and then my co-host.
Hi, it's Vic. Good morning for me. Good morning. Hi.
Yeah, it's morning for him this time around. But today we have a guest, Michelle. Um, Hi, Michelle. Can you introduce yourself?
Sure, I would be happy to. My name is Michelle Steiner. I am a writer, a speaker, a photographer, and a paraeducator. I work in a school with students who have disabilities and some who don't. I also have a learning disability myself, and I live in Pennsylvania with my husband Ron and our two cats, Jack and Sparrow.
Oh,
Jack and
wow.
Sparrow. Nice.
I like the name. Oh,
Thank
that's a
you.
wonderful name. Yes. Okay, so yeah, tell us. Well, we're here to talk about education. So, you work with is it okay to say disabled students, or is it more
Sure. Yeah, that is
political
fine.
colloquial
Yeah,
way? I don't know
students with
the proper way to.
Right. I
S-
work with students that have disabilities. Yes.
okay, okay, yes, all right. So, how did you get into that field? What was the catalyst? What was your motivation behind that?
One of the things I knew with my job and with my disability is I knew that I definitely wanted to work with students. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher, but I knew with having a learning disability that that was going to be just really hard to become a certified teacher. But I knew I wanted to go to college and I
Hmm.
knew I wanted to work with kids. So I ended up deciding, okay, well, I could be a teacher's aide. And that has worked out really amazing with being in the classroom, especially with having a disability myself, because I know what a lot, it has created me that empathy because I know what a lot of my students are feeling and
Hmm.
thinking. And I just think that that is just a wonderful way to go and be able to come full circle.
Oh, great. So, can you tell us a little bit more about your own learning disability so that we sort of
Sure.
understand where you're coming from? Yeah.
Sure, I would be happy to. I have dyscalculia, which is a math learning disability,
Hmm.
and I have limited hand dexterity in both of my hands, and I have visual perception issues, but it's in my brain, not in my eyes. Uh, the dyscalculia is a math learning disability, and I have difficulty with how numbers work. So I might get lost in the steps of a math problem. I do not have all my multiplication and addition and all the fast facts memorized. If I look at a face of a clock, I can see that there's numbers and the big hand and the little hand, but I can't comprehend that. So I use my Fitbit or I use my phone to be able to know what time it is. And I also confuse my right from my left.
Hmm.
I have uh, the visual perception is in my excuse me, my brain, not my eyes. So I have normal vision, but I have trouble with spatial relations, knowing where my body is in space. I have difficulty judging distances, and I'm not able to drive because of that. And I'm also uncoordinated anytime I fall, and I also anytime I get in the field of vision, whenever a ball comes in my way, I blink at it. So that's definitely been a challenge. And I also have limited hand dexterity in both of my hands, but I wasn't diagnosed until I was an adult. And so I have difficulty with opening up jars, or I also have to use a manual. I cannot use a manual can opener. I have an electric one. It's like operating a spaceship when I have a manual can opener. Unlocking doors is difficult. And my handwriting was always bad especially when I was younger. And everybody just thought that I was messy or careless and things would fall out of my hands. And once I had that diagnosis as an adult, it just the light bulb went off. I was like, oh, that's why things are falling out of my hands. That's why I have bad handwriting. And all of these disabilities just seem to stem from my brain, and they all come from the same place.
Oh, I see. Well, don't worry. Yeah, I'm uncoordinated as well. So, but since we're talking about this, maybe Vic can also chime in. But I'm I'm sort of glad that you're on because we could talk about this. Is
Right.
because in the Asian community, when we talk about learning disabilities, some kids when they're growing up, if you can't learn math, you can't do the reading and writing, or people think you're faking it. Like for even for my son, so my son's special needs. So this sort of
Mm-hmm.
episode is resonating with me, and he's autistic and he has trouble uh, learning the reading, writing, math.
Hmm.
He's not really proficient at any of those things. But a lot of people who don't know this, and of course, I'm in an Asian community, and
Right.
especially my parents are just saying, "Oh, you just need to send him to more tutoring. He just needs more tutoring. He just needs to try. He's not trying, basically." They don't
Right.
believe in this. Yeah, they
No, and I agree with,
yeah,
right, I agree with you 100%. In fact, it's really interesting when we talk about dyscalculia, the group that is underrepresented is usually the Asian population because people think that because somebody is Asian, they must be good at math.
right.
And that's not the case. We have people that learning disabilities don't discriminate against somebody's um, race, ethnicity. They don't discriminate against your gender or age. It's something that can affect anybody. In fact, it's like 1 in 5 people are diagnosed with one.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely. I
Mhm.
feel like sometimes in the Asian communities, it's
Mhm.
because they don't believe in this sort of
Yep.
educational disability. It's more of like you're not trying hard enough. But
Mhm.
I feel growing up now or with my son that I feel there is some truth to that. Like there is disability. People, have a tough time
Mhm.
learning, not just math, or sometimes it could be the reading or writing, or just like you're saying, telling from left and right. These are issues that some people face, and then by not sort of addressing it or thinking that their kids aren't just not trying hard enough, I think it's not really helpful to them.
Exactly,
Do you
because
agree?
we
Yeah.
don't get to what the issue is. And a lot of times kids will grow up and they'll go into school and they'll think, oh, well, what's wrong with me? I must not be motivated. I must not be trying hard enough. And
Mm,
sometimes when we don't get those services, kids don't know how to be able to advocate for themselves. They don't know what is going on. So some of them grow up and they're not able to be able to learn how to deal with that, and they can't reach their full potential with that. I was really lucky. My mom and dad, from the time I was very young, explained that I had a learning disability and my brain worked differently. And a lot of people don't want to label their kids, but my mom and
yeah.
dad did. And the information I was getting from them was far better than what I was getting at school.
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely. I could feel. Yeah, we don't want to label our kids, especially if they're
Mhm.
not not of grade level. I guess sort of behind.
Right.
It's sort of. I mean, I guess maybe across the board, sort of embarrassing too. Sometimes it feels like for
Mhm.
me, not only especially in the Asian community, where we're competing with our peers. Growing up, we were competing with our peers, but once now that we're all parents, uh, we're our kids are sort of also something that we are comparing each other with. So what I mean is, like,
Mhm.
before when we were young, it was like our grades, right? If if we know how to do the math, or if we score high on the SATs, and then now it's our kids. Like, are they in the honors class? Are they,
Mhm.
at a like advanced reading level or something? Right? And then
Right.
it's sort of when you have a kid that's sort of in the special needs class, you're sort of like, oh, let's
Right.
keep a low profile. Let's not, don't make any sudden moves, right? Let's not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Because sometimes parents I know my parents had a lot of pressure on them because people were asking them, well, is she enrolled like in any foreign language classes, or how is she going to be able to go to college with having that? And what my mom and dad just wanted to do with me in life was they wanted me to be successful. That was their number one thing. So I had the learning support for math. I had the also had the class where I went to where we had like a resource where I had extended test time. And rather than putting me in a lot of advanced placement classes, my parents put me in things that they knew I was going to be successful. So I had maybe an academic English. So I still had, that was a step above a basic or a learning support, but I still had to do the work. And I also had a science and a social studies that was regular ed. I had the cooking classes, all the specials that were that as well. And what that really helped to do was give me that accountability. So when I did go to college, I knew, okay, the math was going to be the challenge. We knew that. But I also knew that I was going to have to be able to be in a class that definitely was what my peers were doing for other things.
Oh, I see. Okay. How, well, let's switch gears for a second. Vic,
Mhm.
did you have any questions so far?
Well, I was just gonna say I wish I knew that term when I was growing up, and I could have told my parents, like, "Don't be so hard on me in math.
Right? We could, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
It's a
There
real
we go.
thing.
Right.
I'm not dumb."
Right.
Right,
I
right,
I
exactly.
have a learning disability. Stop making fun of me.
Yeah. But all jokes aside, I think after hearing you talk about it, I was thinking back to my own high school days. I'm thinking like, why is yeah, this problem that could be, I don't know, I'm not diagnosed, but that could be
Right,
one reason why like I had such a hard time with it because like what you mentioned about like how numbers don't seem to register in your brain, that kind of
right.
happened to me. Like I don't know, I'm looking at it, but it doesn't really make any sense,
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly. It's like, and a lot of people think that, well, you must see numbers backwards, and that's not the case. I can see, I don't see numbers backwards. And that is one of those things. It's just sometimes I just get lost in the steps of how to do it. And then with the working memory of like, oh, how do we do that problem? How do I handle that? And a lot of people think, well, all you need is a calculator. And I can use a
Mhm.
calculator, but if you don't understand how to do the work, the calculator really doesn't isn't much of a solution for me.
Yeah, same for me. I get lost in the steps.
Yeah.
For example,
Hmm.
if a problem has 10, 12 steps, by the time I get to the fifth one, I'm thinking about something else. I also like I forgot what I just did, you know.
Right. And the amazing thing that I also learned is there will be questions that they might ask a kid, how did you get the answer? And the test wants you to give one specific way of doing that. And
Mhm.
that's really hard for a kid that has a learning disability because they might learn a certain way and they can tell you how they got the answer. But sometimes that's where it can be difficult if you have an instructor that wants them to learn one way or if you have or if you have a test, a standardized test that says, well, show me this method. And that's, I think a lot of times where we do fail our kids because we want them to be in this bubble or in this box that everybody learns this way, everybody does this, and that just doesn't always work for students with disabilities or for a lot of people that just might even struggle with it.
Right.
Oh,
Reynold, actually the sad part is I even enjoyed math. That's the sad part. I liked math, but
Uh-huh.
somehow my brain just wouldn't math, you know? But I was
Right.
yeah.
intrigued by it. But and also like I had a hard time, as Michelle said, having to come terms with, oh, there's only one acceptable way to come at a solution. Like my brain doesn't work that way. I don't know, maybe I'm too stubborn, but I always want to like, oh well, there's so many different truths in the world. Why is there only one solution? So it's getting all philosophical, right? Even
Yeah.
when I was
Right. Yes.
12, 13.
Yes.
I'm thinking to myself
Yeah.
like, well, where's the flexibility? The universe is so full of wonders. Why is there only one solution? Right? So I don't know.
Right.
Maybe I was just justifying my
You, you gotta
my
save that
bad
for
math.
philosophy class. That's why.
Well,
That's
there is a philosophy-based math course. That was one of the things I had to take when I was at university. I was deciding whether, because I knew math was going to be a challenge, I was able to get a waiver at community college. But when I went to university, they said, well, you're not going to get a waiver. So I had to figure out what kind of math class am I going to take. And it was between an algebra class or it was going to be a philosophy-based math. and I decided on the philosophy-based math course. Funny story behind that. I was sitting in one of the common areas and there was a chess game, and somebody asked me, "Do you want to play chess with us?" And I said, "Oh, sure." And it was the shortest game in history. And spoiler alert, I lost. And I remember telling that to the person, my opponent, and he said, yeah. Oh, I said I really want to know whether, if I should take a math-based course or if I should take the philosophy-based one. And he goes, "Well, I'm in that department, and people in my department aren't very nice, so I would suggest a philosophy-based math course." And when I took that, it was really a challenge for me. I can just remember I really struggled with that. And but I was able, the professor was amazing. He knew I was trying, and I was able to pass with a D. And that's all the math that I needed because I carefully researched to make sure that the program I was getting involved with had the least amount of math and science possible.
Oh,
I see.
oh,
Definitely
yeah.
not an engineer major, right?
Oh no. I need not to get
Oh,
involved with that.
yes, exactly.
I
Uh,
think different people are just suited for doing different things too, you know. Not everyone has to
Right.
be an engineer or just to be good
yes,
at math. You know, we need artists
Right.
and we need thinkers, you know. Unfortunately,
yes, exactly.
the world is kind of cold towards these,
Hmm.
quote unquote non-productive
Right.
right? Yeah. So that's kind of sad. Like, but I think the world needs all kinds of people to make it interesting. Imagine if we were all engineers. I mean,
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
you
that'll be
know,
all right.
Right.
Will we all be
would be
hard to deal with?
It
would be
would
pretty
be.
one-sided. They're pretty bland,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we need some different types of people sprinkled in, mixed together, right? We're a big blending melting pot. But Michelle,
Hmm.
I was wondering what over the course of maybe based on your own experience and also your teaching experience, when it comes to these type of students, how do we help them? Is there a way to help them to understand numbers better, or and then for you specific, it's just numbers, right? Is it there's our other kids where they struggle with like words, right? Where words are all jumbled up too, right? I heard that's the
Right.
dyslexia too, right?
Right. Sometimes with dyslexia, not every kid sees letters backwards. Some of them just have like with the language or the processing with that. Some have difficulties with reading comprehension. I think it's about meeting the child and the person where they're at. And I wish they had more customized instruction. Because that's what really saved me was having people meet me where I was at. My teachers with learning support to give me that math that was functional and that I could get through with school. And they really emphasized the strengths of things I am good at. So I'm not great with numbers, but they knew that I could get up in front of people and read really well. They knew that I could write. And I think that was the key thing is really focusing on what I can do and what I can change and all those other things that I can't, then we just find ways to be able to work around that. And I think that's the main thing is really trying to look at that child and think, well, what do they need to do? How do they learn best? And to really customize that for them, I think is so key.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, meet the kids where they are. They're all
Hmm.
not, yeah, they're not all going to be geniuses, but as a
Yep.
parent, all that I ask is sometimes is for them to be able to take care of themselves when they
Hmm.
grow old, or when they get adult age, right? Because
Hmm.
the truth is, parents aren't going to be there forever, so that's what we worry about.
Exactly. And I'm still blessed to have my parents with me in my life. But that was one of the things they wanted me to learn how to do was to be able to take care of myself
Mhm.
because my mom and dad know that they're not going to be around forever and they're always there to love and to support me, but they wanted me to go to college. They encouraged me to have my apartment for on my own until I was, married. I mean, that or I met my husband. They wanted me to have all those things because those were the things that I needed to have, those life skills, how I take care of myself, being
Right.
able to, if I'm not able to drive, I'm able to walk places.
Right.
Just being able to take care of yourself. And I think sometimes I see a lot of people that have disabilities, and some are not. Maybe that's not a wise choice for them to be doing that. But I think that everybody can do something to be as independent as they possibly can be. And I
Hmm.
see a lot of people that don't, a lot of families that don't want to push their children to have that independence. And I think that does a disservice when we just automatically put the rubber stamp on them and say, oh, that person has a disability, they can't live on their own, or they can't have a job, or they can't go to school, rather than saying, all right, how can this person be independent? What are goals that they want to have, and how can I best support that?
You see. Okay. Yeah. Well, do you see, have you experienced any success stories? I don't want to say, I feel like if it's success or like everyone that didn't do something great is it was a failure. But
Right.
since you work with kids, like have you seen some of your past students that went on to maybe go to college or you know get a job, get out to society, live on their own and stuff like those sort of
Right.
examples is sort of a because as parents when we hear that we sort of gives us hope, sort of give us
Exactly.
yeah, yeah,
I've been with my employer for about 13 years. So I haven't seen a whole lot, but I have seen students that have every once in a while I will see a student when I'm out, and they might be at the restaurant, and at a restaurant, and they tell me, "Oh, I remember I was in school." And then there are some that do go to college, and it's
hmm,
always nice when you hear the success stories and people
right,
can come back with that. And a lot of mine are still pretty young, but I always love it whenever I hear what their dreams are too, and I get that chance to encourage that. And I think when I see them out working in the community or going to school, that I had that little part of that. And that's something I really try to do with a lot of my students, is to be that encouraging person, rather than being somebody that says, well, you can't do that because you have a disability. I had a lot of people telling me that I couldn't go to college, or I couldn't have the job that I wanted. Or I even had a psychiatrist who said that I wouldn't be able to get my bachelor's degree. So I try, but I was able to do all those things. So now I have that confidence, and I go into there and I can see the possibilities. So when I have a student that tells me that, oh, I can't do that because I have a disability, I try to tell them, well, it's your choice what you want to do with having that.
oh, well I hope you switched therapist or because that was that's not very
I
uh,
know. Well, the funny thing with that is I had to get evaluated for having a learning disability before I could get services with some of the federal agencies. So to do that, you have to make an appointment with a psychiatrist, and they go through all this whole battery of tests. And I've even had to go back when I needed to get another eval for services. And I had the bachelor's degree, I had the job, and they were all like, they asked me what I wanted to do, and I told them, and they said, "Oh no, you won't ever be able to do those things." So yeah, it's wasn't always the most encouraging. So I always find that amazing that you just can't put somebody's potential in a test result. We just don't know. There's so many other ways around that.
oh yes, yes, but they do that all the time. Is everything based on a
Hmm.
test? Like, oh,
Yeah,
score low on your SAT. Oh, you're not meant for college, or you're not meant for anything. To be honest, right? If you score low on a
exactly.
test, it's like, yeah, but some of the rich people, didn't even finish college. Those tech billionaires, as you
Exactly.
see, they didn't even finish college. They're
Right.
technically
And not
dropouts,
everybody,
right?
right. And not everybody's a great test taker. That has never been something I was good at. And that's always something I noted when I was in school. If I was in a class where we had a midterm, a final, and quizzes and we had maybe one project or a paper that was due. I always did poorly in those classes. I did better ones with a lot of projects, and everybody would say, well, how can you not do well in that class? That's easy. You don't have to do any work. And I have to explain, for me to do the tests, that's a lot more work for me. My brain just does not do well on them.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm really amazed at the kids nowadays, and especially my son, where he's his reading skills is really bad. His math skills
Hmm.
are really bad, but
Hmm.
he's a pro at using his iPad. I mean, I think
Yep,
sometimes
exactly. There.
better than
Hmm.
me. And then he loves playing Roblox now. So there's that new game that's out. It's called, if I'm not saying the name right, is because I'm not in the know, so I'm not I'm not a cool kid anymore. But something called Steal a Brain Broad or something.
Hmm.
You guys could look it up, but I don't know. The kids are into it. Well, at least my son's all into it. And then they have
Right.
all these character names, um, and he knows all these characters' names, and these are like weird names. Like uh, I think it has some Italian like base words, and then but it's like you pronounce it all weird and everything. And I'm like, all these characters' names, and they're like not easy to pronounce. Yet
Right.
you you can read uh, the simple book. Like what,
Right.
so sometimes you question: are you that's the part. That's the times where you question: are you really are you really like? Is there? I'm asking myself: is he really autistic, or is he not really trying? Because these names from this video game is like it's hard for me to
Hmm.
even memorize, to even
Right.
pronounce, and then yet he's doing it like at an ease, like he's and then
Right.
yet I'm asking him to read like the words that are 3 letters long, and it's like he's struggling, and then I'm like, what's going on here?
You have the interest. Just hold on for one sec. I have to charge my laptop for a second.
No worries.
Or else it's gonna
uh,
go out.
uh,
See,
Oh my,
Michelle's too
sorry about
popular.
that.
Michelle's too
yeah,
popular. She's
I
been
know.
doing too many podcasts.
Exactly. She's been on for the whole day.
Yeah, actually, Michelle
Sorry
answered
about
one of my
that.
questions. You
No
actually answered
worries.
one of my questions. I was going to ask, so how does one find out that one is disabled, right? So apparently, if you have parents who are more knowledgeable, they would find the right resources and take you for testing and get you assessed. Yeah, but if you can tell us a bit more about how the process goes, that would be interesting for me.
Sure. I know for me, whenever I was in kindergarten, my teacher noticed that I was really struggling in the classroom. She just noticed that I couldn't write my name. I was just having a hard time with a lot of things. Math was definitely something that was really hard for me, and dot-to-dot pages and my eye-hand coordination. And she recommended to my parents that I get tested for having a learning disability. And whenever I was in school, I had the school psychologist that tested me, and they knew that I had one. And I was really fortunate because from the time I was very small, they knew I had it, and it became a lifestyle. I knew I had to go for learning support. I knew that certain things were hard for me, and my mom and dad never gave up on me. As an adult, I had to go and get tested with with that age with one of those agencies. They paid to go to college. They pay for you to have sometimes they do job assistance. I was able to graduate debt free, but they made you have to prove you have a disability again, and that was something I had to do as an adult. But I think a lot of people aren't as fortunate as I am. There's a lot of kids that go through school and maybe they're good at masking. I wasn't great at masking. I was an only child for 13 years, so I was around a lot of adults and people could see my frustration. But not every kid is. Some kids can have that masking where they can be really struggling and you wouldn't know it, and they can have maybe teachers help them out, or they can have other students. And I didn't have that experience. And my mom and dad, because I was their first child, didn't know what to base normal development on. So they went along with the school, and it just really worked to my advantage. And I always say to parents, if they do have a concern, to work with their child's teacher, work with the school. Also talk to their pediatrician about concerns that they have. And even before your child goes to school, if you have concerns. I know in the United States we have birth to three services where any parent can have their child evaluated and see if they're growing and developing along with the recommendations. And if they're not, there's a lot of more services than even whenever I was growing up that is offered.
I see, I see. Oh, wow. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
Also, like thank God for observant parents and teachers.
Mhm.
Yes.
Supportive teachers and parents. I
Yep,
think it goes back to the importance of having a good community that can
yep,
support you, right?
exactly.
Most people that we talk to who with disabilities or with mental health issues, they came out of it relatively okay if they had that support system in place, if they were fortunate enough to
Mhm.
have it. So I think that's
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah, I agree
Yes,
with that.
definitely.
What about I had a question if you I don't know if you know, but what is the statistics of the undiagnosed? So a lot of I feel we always joke around, but maybe there's some truth to it. I have friends that say, "Oh, I'm a undiagnosed HDHD, or some,
There you go.
just
You're one of them.
yeah, right. It's just another, right? Yeah. To be honest, I feel times maybe I am, or a lot of us were like
Right,
undiagnosed, like because the spectrum is so large that we
right,
we might be flying under the radar because we're on the very mild end of this on the spectrum, but we're just flying under the radar for such a long time because one thing is
right.
in the past people don't believe in it, and but also we were just getting by, we were masking pretty well. Right.
I'm
So
not sure about the statistic with those who are undiagnosed, but I can tell you that there definitely are people who are. And sometimes somebody might even go in for testing and they might say, "Oh, you don't have this or you don't have that." And that can be really difficult too because we don't always get to uh, if somebody really does or they don't. There's no real specific, yes, there are evaluations, but a lot of it is we will never really know if somebody has that or not. And also, I know in the classroom, I look at some of my students and I think, how is this child not identified?
right.
Because we do have a lot of kids, and you can start to see that, and you're like, okay, this child definitely has some things that are going on. And I also know my parents, some of them say that they have learning disabilities themselves. They were never officially diagnosed, but they struggled as well. So I think we're really good now about diagnosing people early. We know what a lot of the signs are to look for. And I think that is why a lot of times we're seeing the increase in people that are identified with having disabilities because we know what to look for.
You have said this before in other podcasts that I suspect a lot of people from our parents' generation, they were actually undiagnosed for a lot of
Yeah,
conditions. Because that would explain a
exactly.
lot. It would
Yeah.
explain a lot of their behavior, you know. Like obviously they don't have terms back in those days or there were studies about that. That was in the early days, but it explains a lot if you look at some of the crazy things that they did or like why they behaved the way
Hmm.
they did and then contrast that with what we know today about mental health and disabilities and it's like oh it suddenly makes a lot of sense.
Exactly, because you can look back, or maybe stuff people did, you can think, oh, okay, that person might have had this, or that person might have had that. And a lot of times, especially yeah, with women, they just assumed, okay, well, you're not going to go to school. That's okay. You can be at home and those sort of things. So we didn't do that. And a lot of times people were even more stigmatized if they did have things like with mental health conditions, with putting them in institutions. So we really never got to that issue sometimes with other people, or there was that fear that if somebody did talk about a family member that was eccentric or had uh, some things that were happening, that fear of putting them away or not being treated right was something that, and people sometimes just didn't talk about their problems too. A lot of times, I can even remember with having the diagnosis, people just you didn't want to talk about having a learning disability. Nobody wanted to speak about that. And I can just remember that shame that went with that. And a lot of having success and a lot of being my own advocate, I had to learn how to speak up for myself with that too.
What I see nowadays over here and where I'm from is there are more and
Hmm.
more parents that are just organizing their own
Hmm.
schools or organizing their own learning environments for their kids and
Right.
their other people's kids, simply because they can't find a suitable traditional school that their
Hmm.
kids can excel at or even just to be accepted. So either they find a school that is more progressive, who
Hmm.
recognize these things and welcome them, or in fact they just start their own school. A lot of them
Right.
just went to take all the courses, get certified, and they just open up their own learning institution for their kids. That's one solution. But
Hmm.
some of the drawbacks that I see from that, now that I've observed it for a few years, is that there are some parents who kind of use that as a shield against even just, I don't know, basic things like if their children are misbehaving in public or being a
Hmm.
nuisance to everybody, like, okay, I get it. Not every child can just be still and be
Hmm.
expected to sit there for hours while the parents are talking, right? But there are extreme cases where it's a very simple act of just taking them outside for a minute so they can calm down, maybe walk
Right.
them for a few minutes and explain to them that, oh, maybe, instead of getting frustrated, you can express your emotions this way. I feel like a lot of times these parents don't put in the work, and then they use all these terms that we have nowadays about disabilities as like an excuse or a badge to, like, excuse their kids' behavior or their own behavior. That's the extreme case that I see on the other end of the spectrum.
Right. I do see that a lot of times as well. A lot of times parents, I can definitely see where maybe pulling them out might have some benefit to that. But I also caution parents or people with that too, that your child or yourself is going to be in this world that is not meant for them. And it would be really nice if everybody could be accepting. And but a lot of times people, you're going to have to survive in a world that's really not designed for someone with a disability. And we all have to figure out how we're going to get along and how we can take care of each other and take care of ourselves. And I think sometimes we want to shield that, or we want to use that maybe as an excuse at times. And that is definitely not, they're going to have to figure out how do we survive in this world.
Yeah, the balance is so hard, right, Michelle? I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah,
that's that's such a real challenge
it
for
is.
parents who are dealing with these issues. The balance, where do you draw the line,
Mhm.
right? On the one hand, you
Right.
have to look out for the welfare of your children, especially if they have
Hmm.
needs. Yet on the other hand, like you said, the world is a very unforgiving place. It wasn't designed for people who are not quote unquote part of the mainstream, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's never easy. Maybe Reynold has some insights about that.
Hmm.
I'm still struggling too. My biggest struggle for a long time, and I'm
Hmm.
still asking the question is, um, how do you discipline a child with special needs? We make Michelle makes a good point. Sometimes they're living in a world that's not built for them, but certain actions are wrong. To
Hmm.
say, just throwing out an example, let's say a child is special needs, but he likes to play with fire and lighting everything on fire. That's sort of not a good, that's
Yes.
not very good, right? So how, and then me growing up, like the way I know how to discipline is just like you get on top of it. You take them out. You give them a stern talking to or something, right? You make sure that they they stop doing it and they don't do it again. But of course
Hmm.
now in this modern day, I know there's a lot more different parenting techniques,
Right.
but then I always struggle, like, because some people say, oh, if you're too stern and harsh with special needs kids, they don't understand. You need to be more. They do the other one, the whole other spectrum of it, where uh, they they reward good behavior, like, oh, you get a cookie
Hmm.
for being good. That was taught to me, and I said, yeah, that's also great too. But
Right.
it's like, if you don't, what if you're in a situation where you can't give a cookie? What if you're like, at church, you're
You're
not,
right.
you're not supposed to be eating. You're at the library. You can't give them something to eat. It's like, what are you gonna do? Like, it's like,
Right.
yeah, like, how do we enforce these sort of I know it's all relative, but like, quote unquote, good behavior versus bad behavior. How do you like discipline them? Because because being Asian, I was always asking my behavioral therapist, like, how do we discipline? And it's like, oh no, you're not supposed to discipline. And I'm like, I'm shocked. Like, oh, we don't discipline. What do we do then?
I know. I mean, that could be a challenge because I
Yeah,
think a lot of times there is that, well, how do you get that point across?
right.
And I think a lot of times it's clear expectations on what we do expect. Okay, okay, if you have the cookie and you're at the library, they can't, okay, if you want to have a cookie, then we go out and then we come back in after we're done. I think it's a lot of times that clear. I just know with working with students, making sure your expectations are clear, also being very firm, but also knowing that you do care about them as well. And that's their safety. And I also think it's picking your battles too. I mean, maybe a child that is playing with fire has matches. Okay, we might want to, take that. We definitely don't want to see them get hurt. But maybe a kid might come in and they might have something a lot. There can be flexibility with things as long as it's not hurting themselves or it's not hurting others too. So I think it's just I think it's yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, so that's something I still struggle with, and I don't know.
Hmm.
And I think I always been trying to find like a straight answer, but I guess I'm learning that there is no
No.
one word fits all, sort of one action fits all for everything. It's
There really isn't. It's just taking that situation and just doing what's best for that. And yeah, I agree. Not one answer.
You're right. Yes. They just got to make parenting hard for all of us.
I have a friend who has a son with full-blown autism, and
Hmm.
I see how they struggle with just taking him out, for lunch outside in the
Hmm.
mall, or
Yeah.
just going out in general to meet friends. It's a real challenge because he's constantly on edge because he has to watch out for his son, right? He has a
Yep.
tendency to wander off by himself, and you don't want him to get lost and get hurt.
Oh, no, you
Right.
don't.
So
Hmm.
again, it helps, I think, if you have a community, people who can watch out for kids together. Or in his case,
Yes.
aside from us helping him out, he also, because he's rich, so he hired a couple of caretakers. Whenever he goes out, he takes them out with him, and then they can help out and look after his son full time. But there were a couple of times when he did run off,
Hmm.
and yeah, and
Yeah.
panic mode, right? And I could really see that he has experience with those kind of things. He found them quite quickly, and he already had an inkling, like almost like a gut feel where his son might be headed. Perhaps something that was bright and shiny that attracted him. He would look around, and like 80% of the time, he's right. Like, oh, he's probably headed that way. then you
Yeah.
found them. Yeah. So again, thank God for just angels like good parents and
Yes.
educators like yourself, who are very observant, very patient. I think that's a word. You have to be
Hmm.
very patient, and try to meet the needs of these children, right? Meet them halfway, right? See where they're at. Yeah.
I agree. And you brought up a really good point with people that are caregivers. It can be very hard, especially with people when they get older, to have someone that cares for their child. We have our kids that are in school until they're about 22. I think maybe it's 23. The law changed. And then after that, it's very hard to find appropriate programming for students with high support needs and caregivers. That is just it's in a crisis of trying to find people to be able to care for them and to have services for adults, because everybody wants to work with kids, and that definitely is important. So
Yeah.
I think that's important, that we have caregivers and that people that have that community. And I also think respite care is important for families too, having that time where somebody can care for them, so family members are able to have that time where they can go and be able to take somewhat of a break from that as well.
But
Yeah.
Reynold, I guess the dream is to uh, hopefully our kids would be able to support themselves, right? Without any
Right.
Yes.
care. That's the dream,
Hmm.
right? That we hope that they can get by
Hmm.
in this world okay without us. Especially, someday we're all going to be gone anyway. And then
Right.
hopefully we're
Yes.
gone and we're not here to look out for them anymore. We just want to know they're okay, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. Yeah. So
Great.
I was telling Vic on another episode. I'm I'm not saying I need my kid to go to college and get a
Hmm.
4-year bachelor's degree. To be honest, I'm just happy if he learns a trade. I mean, it's like learn
Yep.
something to do with his hands or something. Fix a car, fix a even. I was telling another parent the other day, even join the military, because you get a lot of different training in the
Hmm.
military. You get good benefits too, and then you learn
Yeah.
different skills. It's not all about fighting, but of course probably you do learn that. But so,
You
sometimes,
did.
right? But sometimes, I see some kids go out there. They're learning to fix airplanes. They're learning to be like mechanics, fix cars, fix tanks, and that's a trait that they can bring outside, or even computer work. Some people are doing IT stuff in the
Hmm.
military, right? So that's something you could come out and you could utilize on the civilian front. So it's not always about these a degree or something. You got to have a. I think that was sort of the old thinking where you got to have a degree. For me, I'm happy my son just knows how to do something, use his hands to sort
Hmm.
of be, you know, be useful in society. That's it, right?
Exactly. The world needs all kinds of thinkers, and there's all kinds of opportunities. If a kid doesn't want to go to college, that's fine. There's trade schools, there's the military, there's even
Mhm.
having on the job experience too. There's a lot of programs for a person that has a disability or for anybody. So I think that we need to really look at what they like to do and what they are good at too, and then we can work from that point.
Yeah, yeah,
Also, I think one saving grace is technology. It
Yep.
augments a lot of the stuff that a disabled person might not be able to do well. Like Michelle mentioned a while ago, like, well, I'm having difficulty reading off the clock, but there are other ways, right? I can use my phone, tidbit. There are more and more technology coming out that augments all these things, and hopefully someday there will be even more. And I already see it
Yep.
happening. For example, where I'm from, Taiwan is pretty conservative back in the day.
Hmm.
Just moving forward to today, I see a lot of changes happening in society and all kinds of people in the mainstream now. It's like back in the day, we were all from one mold, the
Hmm.
education system here is very Chinese, very Confucian, right? It's based on Confucianism. So it's like everybody has to go to school, everybody has to do this, do that.
Hmm.
You're expected to just conform. And but I think more and more parents are finding out that their kids are different. That, oh, they have needs, and so hence I mentioned them starting their own schools. And then with the propagation
Right.
of that, plus other things and awareness in society,
Hmm.
I really see how society has changed over the past 30, 40 years, and it's no longer predictable. And maybe that's a good thing for our kids, and especially if they're going through some kind of a challenge for themselves, in that the rules are not as
Right.
set, and there's more room to accommodate all kinds of people, all kinds of thinking, all kinds of work. It's really
Hmm.
happening. So I do see some positivity in that. So we'll see. We don't know what will happen. I don't know, 10
Right.
years from now, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, that is the amazing thing with that too, that we also see that the world is changing.
Mhm.
And now some of the things with universal design that you'll see with the Americans with Disabilities Act, it just doesn't benefit somebody that has a disability, but it benefits everybody. For example, if you're in public and you have the automatic doors, that is great. As it's great for me with having limited hand dexterity, but you might have a mom that has a stroller and she's has the diaper bag and she's trying to wrangle a toddler. That automatic door helps her to be able to get in there.
right,
People
right,
movers,
yes,
elevators for people, like I'm not able to use an escalator, so I'm able to use the stairs, but I can also go on an elevator. But that benefits everybody. And I think that our society is becoming more, well, we have different ways of thinking and different ways of doing things than we did from all those years ago.
yeah. It's also
Yeah.
slowly being accepted as part of the mainstream. You know,
Hmm.
one of the challenges whenever you have a disability is that you feel ostracized, right? And you're not
Yeah.
part of society, not part of the mainstream. But nowadays, because I mean, first of all, what is mainstream anymore, right? So
Right.
yeah, and that's great because suddenly there's room for everybody. And also, to your point about, for example, automatic doors. Oh, I really appreciated that when a couple of years ago I was using a walker because you know
Hmm.
I had an real bad accident, and then it's like those times you really appreciate these things that were made for other groups, but somehow you get benefits from it,
Yeah.
and really really appreciate that you know
Exactly.
yeah. So in
Yeah.
the end, I think, like, if what's good for one person might benefit other people, so that can be an incentive to push everybody along, like, we take care of each other more, right? And then
Hmm.
try to move forward together because it's good for everyone. It's not just for one group of people.
Exactly. Yep. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, definitely. Technology is always, even in the blind community, since I'm visually impaired. Yeah, the technology is always, we joke around, but it's sort of true. It's the equalizing sort of factor in things.
Hmm.
I use a lot of AI technology nowadays, and even I choose to use Zoom for our recordings because it's the only one that allows me to use keyboard commands, where all the other ones is
Right.
more you have to click on something or whatnot. And although I use a screen reader, I might be able to navigate it, but just having that ease, it probably wasn't meant just for the blind people so that they can do some keyboard commands and start recording or stop recording. It's probably ease for everyone, but we sort of benefit from it as well. Just like all the other Microsoft, like say Microsoft
Hmm.
has a bunch of keyboard commands. It was to prove efficiency for everyone, but then for us blind users, it really helps us because we don't need to try to navigate to a certain button and then push enter or something. We could also use those keyboard commands to sort of uh, work efficiently
Hmm.
as well. So yeah, so definitely technology is definitely a great thing as well. So yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yes. So yeah, even I know people say, "Oh, AI is taking over jobs," but is also helping us as well because, like I said, using like this morning I was using my Meta glasses, right? Yeah, which has AI. So although it was supposed to be, it's more geared for social media stuff, but it has AI where you could tell the glasses to go, hey, tell me what's in front of me, or describe, read this menu that's in front of me or something. It's not 100%, it's not like, if it were you
Hmm.
yourself reading it, but it sometimes gets you from point A to point close to B. So,
Exactly.
right, that's all we can
Good
ask for.
enough. Close enough.
Yeah, close enough, right?
True.
Right,
Right.
right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
yeah. So, yeah,
You
definitely.
know, Michelle,
Crazy.
to Reynolds' point earlier, he was trying to ask you about whether you've seen some of your students or
Hmm.
other kids who've grown up to move on to successful things. One of the things
Hmm.
that I've seen with the benefit of hindsight now is some of the kids that I've observed with special needs graduating from high school. Um, I think it's important to set realistic expectations.
Yes.
Like I think most of the parents who've been doing this for a while now have come to the point where, well, first of all, they've accepted it, yes, and they've done what they can to move their kids along. Um, and what I've noticed about these kids who've grown up is they tend to find something that suits them, and like I expect them to do well in corporate, for example, or like be in something where they're expected to be in a mold or a box, but just not good at it, right? So they tend to
Exactly.
find something in the arts. They tend to find something. Maybe
Hmm.
they themselves become educators. They
Yep.
try to, like just try to, because you can relate. You know what they're going through, so you're the best person to teach them and guide them. So I see a lot of them moving into these non-traditional roles. Um,
Hmm.
I also see them sort of like taking over their family's businesses. At least here in Asia, that's a thing, right? If your family is fortunate enough to own a business, their parents kind of teach them how to take over and accept that when their kids do take over, they won't be doing things the way they did it. It's just not possible. But they try to change the business so that it fits their children. And some of them have worked out pretty well.
Hmm.
So setting
Right. And I
realistic
see,
expectations, right? Yeah.
yeah, and I see a lot of families that have had children with disabilities, and they might open up coffee shops or they might open up different kinds of businesses where they hire people with disabilities because they know that maybe that traditional mold isn't going to work for everybody. And that turns into being a blessing for everyone in the community.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of those. Those are interesting.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
surprisingly, they do quite well because,
Yeah.
there are more good people in society than we'd
Yep.
like to admit. There are a lot of people who support these places. And it kind of reminds me of AI as well, that in a sense that
Hmm.
most of these cafes are run by a mix of people with and without disabilities. So it's kind of like AI in a
Yep.
sense that AI is not going to completely to
Oh,
replace it
no.
over. It's more like an interaction between humans and AI. So like that kind of combo works pretty well. So in the sense, for people with disabilities, I think I see that as a possible path forward in that
Hmm.
they're very involved, but they do have a couple of staff or maybe even just people who care about them who are quote unquote not disabled. So it's a mix.
Right. And I think that can be just it's when you can see the accommodations or when you go in there and you don't even notice that. Like I was at a coffee shop and that was for people with disabilities. And the person, rather than trying to like write names on the coffee cup like they might do at Starbucks, you were given a playing card, and that's how the person with the disability
Nice.
was able to know whose order that was. And these people were very kind, and they welcome you to the shop, and they had someone working alongside them to that didn't maybe have the disability. A lot of times you might have college students and they were helping them, but it was the person with the disability that was learning how, was making the drinks,
Mhm.
was handling the orders, and they just had another person that if they needed assistance, they could have somebody to explain that. And my husband, I said, "Do you know why they used the playing card?" He goes, "No, I don't know why, but I could understand why they did that." And I thought, well, isn't that just a really nice way that an outsider that might come, that's not familiar maybe with practices with working with people with disabilities, wouldn't even know that. They're just happy they got their coffee, and I just it's definitely there's so many more things that, and it's that thinking outside of the box of how we train people. It's not just, okay, we're going to give you a new hire orientation and expect you to be able to learn everything and to do everything. We're going to help support you with that. And I think that's what's really needed in a lot of places too, because I might find people that, okay, maybe they can do this part of the job, but a lot of places like corporate, they want them to be able to do multiple aspects or multiple departments. And I can see why that definitely is something that you're able to utilize your employees. But I also think that that doesn't always work for somebody that has a disability. Sometimes we have to really just, it's about meeting people where they're at.
Agreed, 100%. Plus, Reynold, what you
Mhm.
said to me before, how you actually learn from your son.
Mhm.
It's not always you teaching your son, you actually learn from him. So to that point, Reynold, I think I just want to say that they might surprise you. There's still a lot
Mhm.
of years ahead. You don't know how they're going to turn out. We do our best, but I really do think a lot of them will surprise you.
Yeah.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yes, they will definitely surprise us. But I'm surprised every day. Just like that game, how it knows all those names, and I have no idea what those. But yeah, he's right.
He's
He's
teaching
surprising
you.
me every day. Yeah. The only thing I know how to pronounce is that they have one character which is a regular name, Strawberry Elephant. Everything else is some weird random pronunciation. I'm like, this is I don't know. I mean, even the Pokemon names are easier than than the names that
Right.
they came up with. So I'm like, oh, but
Well,
yeah,
he's lucky he's got you, right?
right.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes, he
Uh,
is.
I'm just a big kid at heart, to be honest. but
Hmm.
uh, but yes, definitely, yeah, definitely learned a lot today. Well, Michelle, we usually like to uh, end the episode with some sort of a nugget of wisdom or some sort of take-home message. Do you have? Would you be willing to share something, maybe, to our
Sure.
audience?
I always love to tell people that success doesn't always come in the package that we expect. Sometimes it comes in something even better.
Oh,
Nice. Yeah.
nice, nice. That's perfect. What about you, Vic? You got anything to add today?
Oh, what she said.
Yeah.
That's good.
Michelle said it so
Uh,
well. But yeah, what
yes,
she
yes,
said. Yeah.
definitely. And then, but I would like to add, uh, what Michelle sort of said towards the beginning of the episode. But um, and I think for us, not for us, but for the kids out there that are listening, because I know Vic says his son might share the episodes with some kids. We're on to you. Don't try to use disability as an excuse to not do your homework. And for us, right? We're on to you. But that's the uncle in us talking. But on the
Yes,
other
do the
side,
best you can do.
yeah, still do the best you can do. And on the
Yep.
flip side, for parents as well, be a little bit more considerate. They are trying to do the
Hmm.
best that they can do. I mean, even
Yes.
us as parents, we're trying to do the best that
Hmm.
we can do, and that's all we can ask for. Everyone trying to do the best that they can do. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. That is our 2 cents for today. Please like and subscribe to our show. Again, sharing is caring. And again, a big thank you to Michelle for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you. definitely have you on again for some follow-up episodes. You gotta see the progress of these kids, right?
Yes, I
Yes.
would love to.
Thank you,
All right.
Michelle. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yes. And
Thank
thank
you.
you so much.